Hi guys, today in this video we'll be going through the Guardian items available only in Howling Abyss. Currently there are 4 ARAM exclusive Guardian items that are all extremely gold efficient, meaning the amount of stats that they give you for the amount of starting gold you can spend is pretty much OP. Now take note that each Guardian item counts as a legendary item, and different mythic items have different passives that grant extra stats for legendary items. So by just having 2 items, for example a mythic item like Kraken Slayer and a Guardian item like Guardian's Hammer, the mythic item will grant you 10% attack speed. However, I will not be going through each mythic item's passive with legendary items since there are too many variations. Just take note that having a mythic item and a Guardian item will give bonus stats. So first up will be Guardian's Orb that gives you 150 HP and 40 AP. The passive also restores 10 mana every 5 seconds, and if you're playing a manaless champion, you'll restore 15 health every 5 seconds instead. So I would say that out of all the Guardian items you can purchase, this would be the weakest of the Guardian items. This is because if you compare the AP you get from Guardian's Orb, which is 40, to an item that you can buy at the start, let's say Lost Chapter, you also get 40 AP. And for the mana regen stat, as long as you run the precision tree in your runes, where you take Presence of Mind, you shouldn't run into mana issues, especially if your champion builds Lost Chapter later on. So the mana regen stat is not really a major factor. The only good thing about buying Guardian's Orb is if you're on an AP champion that is manaless, like Velimir or Rumble, that doesn't build a Lost Chapter item. Then it gives a lot of both damage and defense stats since you get both HP regen and AP. Other than building Orb on a manaless AP champion, you don't really want to get it. While Guardian's Orb as an item is much more gold efficient than Lost Chapter, the stats you get for the gold efficiency is really not that good. So what are the options you have? You can go Lost Chapter with your first buy into your one of the Lost Chapter items, or if you want to stack tier early, you can go tier and Blasting Wand, so that the Blasting Wand you build can be built into one of the Lost Chapter items. A lot of mages who play need their mythic item to unlock the champion, like using Leandries or using Ludens. The faster that you can build your mythic item, the better. If you do start off the game by buying tier and orb, and then you buy a Lost Chapter item, you now have 3 items that grant you mana or a mana regen, which means that you have spent a large amount of your gold on mana or mana regen stats than you actually need, since you get enough mana from Presence of Mind alone, or just by having a Lost Chapter mythic item. So the conclusion for Guardian Orb would be, if you're just gonna get a Lost Chapter mythic item, like one of these, you should just start with Lost Chapter. If you're not buying one of the Lost Chapter items, you could go tier and orb as well, that's fine. But of course some people do believe that starting with Guardian items no matter what is the best option for any game due to the sheer gold efficiency. Next would be Guardian's Blade, which gives 30 AD, 150 HP and 15 ability haste. This item is the most gold efficient item out of all the Guardian items. You get 15 ability haste, which is very valuable, especially early game since you won't be getting ability haste until you complete your first item, for example Dust Blade or Prowler's Claw. The other option of starting would be getting Serrated Dirk, which gives 30 AD. The Guardian's Blade also gives 30 AD, but if you to get Serrated Dirk, the only gold you have left would be enough to purchase boots. But if you get Guardian's Blade, you would have enough gold to get one more longsword and a refillable pot, which means you leave base with 40 AD instead of 30. The other option would be getting Guardian's Blade and tier if you want to start stacking tier early, which allows you to rush mana mining. While getting to your mythic item faster is still important and Serrated Dirk is still a good buy, Guardian's Blade being the most gold efficient Guardian item, the amount of stats you can get for the starting gold and being able to stack tier early is just too good not to get. The next item would be Guardian's Hammer, which gives 25 AD, 150 HP and 10% lifesteal. Now as an ADC, lifesteal is going to be very valuable no matter which stage you are in the game, since you don't get to base and get the health back anytime you want. The only way you can get reliable health is through lifesteal, and getting 10% lifesteal is very valuable since you get use out of it early game as well as later on when you purchase more lifesteal items. As compared to the other buy, which will be Known Quiver, which gives 30 AD and 15% attack speed. Now same with Guardian's Blade, if you get Guardian's Hammer, you will still have 450 gold left, which means you can get one more longsword, adding an extra 10 AD, which means you will leave base with 35 AD instead of 30 if you were to go Known Quiver. Now as for the Known Quiver passive, you don't really require which allows last hitting to be easier, since it's mostly only useful in Summoner's Rift where CSing is very important for an ADC. However, I will note that there are exceptions where your champion's first item spike is too important. For example, Jhin, where rushing Noon Quiver into Gale Force is much more important in my opinion, since you would rather have a fully completed Gale Force than a Guardian's Hammer with no Quiver and Quick Cloak. But it's always up to your own decision and whatever feels best in that game. Now on to the most OP Guardian item you can get in ARAM, which gives 150 HP, 20 HP every 5 seconds, and reduces all incoming champion damage by 15. Now we'll just go through these stats one by one. 150 HP is nice for a tank early game, and the health regen you get is good too, since it's constantly active throughout the game. You'll always be regenerating health. The most OP thing about this item is the passive, reducing all incoming champion damage by 15. Now 15 damage might seem small at first, but don't forget that this is ARAM where damage is constantly occurring, especially if you're a tanky champion. Now combining both the health regen and the damage reduction, just by keeping this item in the slot and leaving it there, the item provides so much value. Even if you aren't a tank champion, you can still build it and it will provide a lot of value. That's how good it is. It's pretty much buildable every game. Now since it costs 950 gold, you still have 450 gold left, so you can either get Horn, Boots and Refill, or you can go Horn, Tear and Refill. Both stats are good depending on if your champion uses a lot of mana or not. If not, keeping Tear as an item in the slot until you can replace it is good too, since they are much better tank items than Winter. Now here's the fun part. If you take a look at Warmog, it requires a bonus of 1100 health to activate its passive. Minus the 100 HP the item already has, you will need 300 extra HP to activate it. Now all you need to do is get this and Guardian's Horn, and the remaining 150 HP you need can either come from a Ruby Crystal, or you can stack Grasp of the Undying. This means that with a Horn start, rushing Warmog's first item is very much doable and viable. You should know that whenever you're playing a tank champion in ARAM, you are most likely going to build Warmog by the end of the game. Warmog is just a necessity for tank champions in ARAM specifically, because getting in, doing damage, tanking, and then getting out only to get your full HP back in seconds is very important. However, I would say that rushing Warmog is not always the best option. Against enemy team comps that are heavy on engage and running you down in team fights, rushing Warmog isn't good because you can't utilize the passive as well. As compared to playing against a heavy poke enemy comp, which is quite often, you can get poked, heal up, continue providing utility to your team, without being low HP before you can even engage or peel. You should also know that playing anything against percentage max HP damage, for example Liandry's, rushing Warmog is not good, since it does percentage max HP damage and delays the passive activation. Going your mythic item first may just be a better option then, and if you're playing against Vayne, you should definitely not rush Warmog. So that has been just a summary of all the Guardian items. I hope this video has provided some sort of insight into these items, and if you were to take away one thing from this video, it would be that Guardian items are very OP. You should just get them every time as a starting item. Maybe not for Guardians Up because you have better options, but for the rest definitely yes.